Hello and welcome to our spring 2024 cybersecurity awareness training. We did all these trainings, we provided them to all of our departments one-on-one, but for those of you who were unable to make those trainings, or those of you who would like to watch them again or share them with other individuals, this is why we record them and put them on our YouTube channel. So let's get going. In this session we're going to cover quite a few topics. Why is cybersecurity important? Managing cybersecurity, and local government's cybersecurity challenge. I think all three of these is just good for all employees to have an understanding of what's kind of going on the management end of this problem and why we believe it's so important. And now we're going to dive into phishing, which is one of the primary attack vectors for cyber criminals. And really, I can find like 13 types of these. So I want to explain those to you. It's important to understand what they're trying to do and that you be prepared for it. And we're going to talk a little bit about understanding ransomware and malware. And then we're going to take an inside look at our advanced threat protection, just to give you an idea of kind of what's happening on the back end. I think that's kind of fun to see. So let's get moving along. So why is cybersecurity important? I think everyone knows this, but I just want to talk about it for a second. So it's important because it protects your organization's data from theft and damage. This includes the theft of sensitive data, personally identifiable information, known as PII, intellectual property, financial information, and information systems. And of course, just straight out theft, maybe through a wire fraud or some other type of crime. And all this, is relatable to you on your home level too, because cyber criminals are trying to do this to individuals as well. And without a cybersecurity program, organizations cannot defend themselves effectively against data breach campaigns. If you're not defending yourself, you're just open to these threats. And what's important to also understand, this is not something that happens sometimes. This happens every single day. We are seeing these breach campaigns, phishing campaigns coming into our organization every day, multiple times. This is a never-ending responsibility for IT and for all of us. This is a 24/7, 7 days a week responsibility. There must be a committed ownership and understanding on an organizational level. It's not something that I believe you should be farming out and letting others just take on this incredibly important responsibility. You're asking for trouble. Someone on staff, a CIO or a CISO or an IT director, whatever we call these individuals, someone on staff should be in charge of this operation at all levels. All staff at all levels really should be trained regularly on cybersecurity and be an active part of our defense. Why is this such a struggle for local governments? And it really is. If you read the news, you'll see it's a problem for governments, basically of all sizes. Governments often have poor cybersecurity leadership in the organization. There's no one staffed with being responsible. Lack of any IT staff. Often local governments, they just farm out their IT staff, IT work to other companies, and that includes cybersecurity. One of the problems here is if when you farm it out, the company you're farming it out to probably has countless other customers. They only have so much staff as well, so how much time can they really give your organization when it comes to basic IT support, but also the really strong work it needs to manage the cybersecurity element of this. You need to be proactive. I will say farmed out companies are usually reactive on these things. They have to be. Or townships, local governments often don't invest anything or a very small amount of money into actual, what I would call cybersecurity infrastructure. Poor day-to-day cybersecurity management. There's no one on staff tasked for this. Companies are just hoping for the best. And if you don't have anyone on staff doing this, staff probably isn't being trained. properly. And I'll say it again, too much trust with a contractor for cybersecurity accountability. You need to have an active and engaged technology staff, which is why you're watching this or attended the training or did both, and you're a dedicated reader of our Cybersecurity Friday newsletter. Engaged staff. And this is because with an engaged staff, you need to be notified. No solution can stop all threats from getting into the email or text messaging or whatever. So the staff needs to be aware and empowered to act on it. And that means reporting the messaging to their IT team. This is critical to remember. Active cybersecurity threats require instant response and instant investigation and remediation. That means IT will stop what they're doing and go do this when it happens. I don't know if a contractor is going to do that. The technology leader must be able to communicate with the organization's staff in a manner that educates and informs in all elements of cybersecurity landscape. There has to be trust and there has to be constant communication and working together. And this should occur regularly in all kinds of ways with all staff members. So once we're past that, now we're going to take a look at part 2 basically, and we're going to look at different types of phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are these email messages, text messages, phone calls we're all receiving. And cyber criminals have different ways, different paths of trying to basically trick you into providing them with information they want. So we're going to take a look at these different types. There are probably more. These are the ones that I think are the most common and most relevant today. It might be different in a year from now. We did cover most of these, or if not all of these, in our Cybersecurity Friday issues, 85 and 86. So feel free to look at the back issues. You can get to the back issues now by going to our Westchester page, going to the IT page, and on the left-hand side there's a link to the Cybersecurity Friday back issues. Didn't know that, did you? So let's take a look at these. So the first one we're going to talk about here is smishing, which is really text messaging. Cyber criminals trying to trick you through text messaging. This has become a very popular attack vector today, and that is because it works. And why does it work? Well, it works because when you have your mobile phone with you, you're usually doing other things. You could be walking, driving, having dinner with your family or friends, just talking to people. You're out and about, you're at a ball game, watching TV. You're already in trouble there because you're distracted. And when you're distracted, you can act quickly. Text messages, the smishing, like most phishing, they're going to try to make you panic and act quickly. So be aware of that with your text messaging. And we'll talk about how to identify what could be a smishing text message. Text messages that request personal information should be avoided and deleted. Never provide personal information of any kind through a text message. If the message asks you to click on a link to resolve a problem or even win a prize, delete it. It's not going to be a prize, and it's not going to be a problem you even have. You're creating a problem. The message claims to be from a government agency. Now, what I will say about this is governments will not ask you for information via text message. Government text messaging is basically what we do here. It's one-way communication. There are borough council meetings. The agenda's are ready. There's a bad storm. There's a street is closed. Things of just a special event. One-way communication. The minute you see what pretends to be a government asking you to provide something, delete it. And if these are work-related, report them to IT. Hopefully it helps with the text messaging. It's very common. Go to the next one. Phone scams. One of the oldest ones in the book. It still works. The biggest problem now is they're also calling your cell phone, not just your home. If you have an old school home phone like I do at home, that's been happening for a while. It's getting worse and worse in the complexity of these. So I will say treat these calls, or these callers will try to create a sense of urgency. Someone's hacked into your computer. Someone's hacked into your bank. And it's very common right now, the bank scams. We just had one with a local bank a month ago that we talked about then. When you get a phone call that's unsolicited, you did not request it, you really need to pretty much just ignore it, and we'll talk about that. Um, the caller will create a sense of urgency. They'll ask you to download a remote access app because they need to connect it to your phone, or they need to connect it to your computer, and they're calling you to help you. If you did not call them, do not do any of those things. Hang up the phone, block the number. If you feel there is any credibility or a possibility of credibility, whatever they were talking about, reach out to that organization or person independently. Find the phone number independently from that messaging and ask them. You will almost always find, don't say always, you will always find that that was not a legitimate phone call. And warn your friends on these things, because if you're getting it, your friends or your workmates might be getting it as well. Spear phishing. This is when attackers research their targets to create more sophisticated and compelling phishing messages. They can see our profiles on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, X, Twitter, and they'll use this information to try to target messaging to you. How can we spot some of these phishing attacks? Unexpected with contact from someone in a trusted position. If the mayor does not typically call you and ask you to do something, it's probably a scam. I'm using the mayor as an example, but anybody who's like in a trusted position that you really don't deal with very often. Consider the email's format. When you're reading these things, does it look professional, legitimate? So you do some research there. Look at it. Read it. Don't act quickly. If they're providing you with pressure to act, that's a big sign of a problem. When you see these things, ignore them and delete them. I like this one, a whaling attack. It's kind of cool sounding. Sounds like Moby Dick. These are targets that these target high-level executives, borough managers, city managers, CEOs. People in these higher positions should be aware of these type of attacks. So how can you spot these? The sender's email doesn't exactly match the company domain. You need to, if you're getting an email that appears to be targeting a high-level person and is kind of asking for odd things, take a close look at that email address and do some research. When unsolicited messages ask you to wire money to an account, that's a problem. Don't do it. So many townships fall for that one. Search engine phishing. These are the search engines we use. Especially Google is prone to this problem, and that's basically because of its popularity over Bing. I haven't heard much of this happening with Bing, but it will happen to them occasionally. So your search engines get manipulated. We'll explain that here in a second. So how can you identify this? Carefully examine the website's URL web address. When you're doing a search for something, when you get your responses back, be very cautious of the top, like 1 to 5, because when this happens, they stick them on top. Often they will even pay Google to be on top, and they're not really what you're looking for. So really watch those 4 or 5 search results. The reason I say Bing doesn't suffer from this, I don't think they deal with the financing in the same way Google does, where companies can pay, or people can pay, to have their search results go on top, even if it's not really appropriate to what the searcher is looking for. Check for the HTTPS. We know that means the website is secure. If it does not have an HTTPS, if the S is not there, do not go there. It's not secure. Legitimate companies are going to have their websites, they're going to pay to have it secure. And that means encrypted. Your device is acting strangely. It means it could have already been compromised by one of these attacks. So be cautious when you're doing searches, especially through Google, especially after the first 4 or 5. A lot of times they're not even scams, they're just companies who are paying to be on top of the search. So they're not always the most appropriate ones that you want. Angler fishing. I always think of fishing when I see this one. These target specific individuals on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You see there's some overlap with some of these, but it's good to know all about these and be aware of it when you're interacting on the internet or through email. A stranger you've never heard contacts you with an offer to help. If you didn't ask for help, ignore the message. The message or the profile doesn't just look right or feel right to you. Trust your instincts. Ignore it. Farming. I think of pharmacy. I don't know why. But farming. This redirects your website traffic to fake websites. You think you're going here, but your browser was kind of hijacked, and now you're sitting over at another website that might look the same, and they're hoping you will interact with that website. And it's through that interaction that your computer can be compromised and your information. So how to spot farming, fake websites? Look out for unusual website redirects. Watch what's happening on the browser. Does it look right what just happened? Check the site of the URL spelling. Okay, does it really say Microsoft.com? Or does it say like Microsoft with 2 O's and maybe a second T or something like that? That's what they do. Knowing that very often we don't see the detail. So be aware of the detail. Browser warnings. If you have an antivirus on your machine, I hope you do, you may get a warning when you hit one of these sites. Pay attention to those warnings. Fake pop-up ads. This is another one that is very common, and it's been around for a long time. How to spot fake pop-up ads. Examine the source of the pop-up. Legitimate pop-ups typically come from trusted sources, such as your operating system or your browser or installed software. It might be Microsoft saying there's a Windows update, or you might have an HP printer that says there's an HP printer update. Take a close look at these pop-ups. Do not trust unsolicited pop-ups. Carefully read the ad content. If you have a pop-up, take the time to read it before you do anything. Legitimate pop-ups do not ask for private information. Once again, this is a common thread. Never provide personal information in these types of communications that we're talking about. Evil twin phishing. I love this one. And this is just cyber criminals creating fraudulent Wi-Fi networks. To think of this, think if you go to your local Starbucks. Well, there could be a person, this is, it seems like a Sopranos episode or something, but a person in a van or in a building next door could be broadcasting a fake Wi-Fi network that looks like it's Starbucks. Just like the fake websites. There might be an extra C in it, or you might say the Starbucks. And they're hoping you're going to connect to that Wi-Fi instead of the Starbucks Wi-Fi. Which is why I say kind of avoid free Wi-Fi's altogether. So how can we spot some of these? Multiple Wi-Fi networks with a similar identical name are available. So if you're at Starbucks and you see 3 or 4 that say Starbucks, be very cautious of which one, if any, you connect to. The network requests excessive information. Many times free networks will ask for your name and your email address. That's the price you're paying for the free connection. But when they start asking you for dates of birth and other information, credit card, do not provide it. The network that you're disconnected to is really slow. That's a problem because it's a Wi-Fi network. It should not be really slow and noticeable. You need to get off of that network. These are signs that you always should stay away from them. And as I'll say, related to this, really use free Wi-Fi with great caution. If you have unlimited Wi-Fi, unlimited internet on your mobile device, and you have 4G or 5G, you're better off just using that connection. It's much more secure than any Wi-Fi network is going to provide. Watering hole phishing. I do like the name of some of these. Targets users by compromising websites they frequently visit. So here they're compromising the website before you even get there. Once again, you're on a website, your browser's acting odd, maybe unusual messages, it's flashing as it goes from one place to the other. You're getting warnings from the antivirus software. That's your antivirus software telling you something's up. This is an increase in suspicious activities on your device when you're there. All those things are things that are telling you, get off that website. Man-in-the-middle attack. That uses vulnerabilities in Wi-Fi networks to intercept after communication between two parties without their knowledge. So let's take a look. So unexpected requests for sensitive information while you're on this Wi-Fi network. Like you'll be on the network and you'll get a pop-up saying, hey, we need to verify something. You're getting certificate errors from your browser. When your browser is, if it's up to date, is on a website, it's trying to make sure that website is secure. And if it's seeing problems either in that or in the coding of the website, it's going to give you error messages. Take them seriously. You're experiencing unusual delays. You're on a website through a Wi-Fi network and you just go to NFL.com and it's just taking forever to load and it's acting, and the page is just loading in a really strange way. You need to get off of that Wi-Fi network. This is very important for organizations like ours. Business email compromise. It even has an acronym, BEC. It's so important and common. Cyber criminals gaining access to a company's email system by impersonating executives. This happens here all the time. It says it's from the mayor, and it went to like 8 people. The mayor did not send it. Her email address was just seen by someone, and they can use that against us. So how can you spot these? Sudden requests for wire transfers. I would suggest wire transfers are a no-go. If email or unsolicited phone calls are involved, there needs to be 3, 4, 5, 6 checks on these things before a wire transfer happens. Emails are sent at unusual times. Attackers sometimes will contact employees outside of business hours with urgent requests. If your boss sends you something and you probably want to do it. You want to make him or her like, okay, I'm a good worker. Time of day, I'm responding to him or her. Be very cautious of that and read the message clearly. And if it's coming from a boss or a manager, call that person. Don't respond by the email. Call their phone number and talk to them. They attempt to move your conversation to a mobile device, because they want to access your mobile device. So say, hey, you might be on the computer, and they'll say, hey, can we continue this conversation on the phone? Okay, so there's 13 types of phishing. Some are more relevant than others, but it's really good to have a nice understanding of that as you're interacting with the email and the internet. So let's just talk about, now we're going to talk about ransomware for a moment. And the reason I'm talking about ransomware and then malware, because you hear these all the time, and you hear about these all the time because they are a real problem, and they cost money and time, reputation when these things happen to an organization. So what is ransomware? Quite simply, it's a type of malicious software or malware that prevents you from accessing your computers or your systems or networks with a demand to pay a ransom for their return. So it's malicious software like malware with a specific purpose, and that is to lock everything down and put you under great pressure, you or your organization, to pay in an effort to get your money or your system back, to get your information or your system back. Ransomwares cause costly disruptions to operations and the loss of critical information and data, as well as damage to the liability of the organization. So once a ransomware code is loaded into a system, you can do this unknowingly by downloading ransomware onto a computer, by opening an email attachment, clicking on an ad, following a link, or even visiting a website that's embedded with malware. That's how it gets into the system. These 13 phishing things we just talked about is the biggest vector for this to happen. So let's just cover some basic facts of ransomware. Uh, we just did that. Okay, let's see. So what it does, it encrypts your files, locks them down. You need a long encrypted code that only the attacker has, and what they're asking for is money to get access to that code, so you can unlock your files. Most of the time, you don't even know your computer's been infected. Very often, the infection on the network will occur 90 plus days out. 90 plus days out from the actual infection being noticed by IT or by people on staff. And the reason that is done, it's a delayed attack. They know many companies have what they call 30, 60, or 90-day backups. So if they can't infect the backup, which they do try to do, but if they can't, they figure, hey, let's have the time bomb hit on day 91 or 92 after all the backups have been infected by the ransomware, as part of their day-to-day backup. Each day-to-day backup, every day that the ransomware and the encrypted files are there, the encryption, that day's backup will be encrypted with the ransomware as well. So you go from 90 to 89, 80, so that's why there's often like a delay on these ransomware attacks being noticed by IT or the organization. Once an attacker is inside your computer, it can take as little as a few hours for them to actually deploy it if they want to deploy it right away and not have a delayed attack like I just said. And then what the malware does, it encrypts all the files on your computer, locking you out of your device and your files. Many ransomware programs are designed to display a message with the required ransom. You've seen these on the news or on the internet. You get this big red old school message that says, call this number or wire this money to this account to get the code, and you have 7 days to do this. At that point, they'll destroy the code, and you'll never get those files back. And at this point, when this does happen to an organization or to your personal files, you really have very few options if you've gone to this sad state of affairs. If you're prepared and have backups that are longer, that have been out there longer than the ransomware encrypted files have been, you can maybe recover. But remember, if they're 91 days out, all the data you have put into the system for the past 91 days is going to be gone. So it's really a problem in which you don't want to be victimized by the ransomware in the first place. So how can we defend ourselves from ransomware? Well, as we talked about earlier in this training, and we discuss in every year sort of Cybersecurity Friday, and every time I talk to everyone, is be suspicious of any links in emails, as they are a common source of ransomware. If you don't at home, you should make sure you use a cloud backup system. Back up all of your information in the cloud. Microsoft does offer one if you have a OneDrive account through Microsoft. I highly recommend that one. But there are many others, third-party backup solutions you really should invest in. They're not very expensive. These are files that are backed up off-site in another cloud. Very often you can get like limitless backup, means it's not 90 days or 30 days. It can be longer than that. That's really important. The farther away your backup goes, the better. And for companies, the best way to defend against ransomware is to keep your network as secure as possible. That's a trained staff, that's good cybersecurity infrastructure, and good IT leadership with cybersecurity. And all these will even help if something does get into the system by chance. All these things will help reduce the damage. Ransomware threats are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And why are they not going anywhere? Because they work. Every day in the news, if you pay attention, you're going to see some company that has, or organization, or township, or city that's been successfully damaged in a ransomware attack. If you're responding to an attack, ransomware attack, after it happens, you're probably already too late. It means there's already been some sort of damage being done. And at this point, IT is just trying to reduce the amount of damage. Let's take a look at malware. Remember, malware can do all kinds of stuff. It is malicious software. It's how the cyber criminal wants to use that malicious software. In some cases, It's ransomware. They're using the malicious software to lock your files and encrypt them. And there's other ways they can use malware as well. So what does malware mean? Well, the term malware refers to any software that is intended to threaten or compromise information or systems. Any type of software that you write that wants to do damage or steal is malware. Hackers use malware to compromise networks or devices with the intent of stealing information or making the system unusable. There are many types of malware. I'm only going to cover the main ones here. Viruses, very old school. These have been around since the 90s, if not sooner. I had an issue of Cybersecurity Friday a few issues ago that talked about like the first ever virus. So this is a type of malware that attaches itself to benign files that otherwise look like a Word document, some other kind of basic file, and it spreads and affecting other files from that. Worms. These resemble viruses as they are a type of infection that replicates from one computer to the other. So if computer A, if there's 10 computers in a work group or in your home, you have 5 computers connected at your home network. One gets the virus. This will replicate throughout the work space or the network to all the other computers. It's self-sustaining and it will grow from one computer to the other. Trojans, just like the old ancient tale, you think you're downloading something that says it's a game, but within that game is a malicious program. This is why I really say stay away from free applications and free games. I know this can be challenging on an iPhone, right? Free games. Very often free games or free programs will be embedded with some type of Trojan. It's possible, it happens. It's a little less likely on an Apple iPhone because of their quality control. I would definitely on an Android never download a free program. It has much less quality control than an Apple. And don't download free programs on your Windows or Mac PC, because very often there could be a malicious program inside that. So you have different types of malware. Spyware. Another type of malware is you can tell by the name spyware. It's spying on your computer, it's spying on your activities, it's logging your keystrokes even on your keyboard, and it's selling that information to other people, or eventually it will use the data it's collected from your use of that PC for other illegitimate purposes. Bots. Bots are often used to automate tasks and dynamically interact with your website visitors. So bots can automatically take over your computer and do tasks on the back end, and you do not even know it. One of the results of this can be your computer really being slow, because it's running programs and doing things in the back end through the bot that you don't even know about, and there's so little resources left for you to read your email. That's why it could be slow. Again, malware can and often results in ransomware. So using malware to put ransomware onto your computer or your network. Just think of malware as bad software. A couple more: adware, where you just kind of get pumped with ads nonstop. You probably have malware doing that to your computer. Rootkits. These are programs that are inside the operating system that are just doing bad things, monitoring your computer, logging information. It can, as it says here, rootkits can be used to mask bad activities taking place behind the scenes. Keyloggers, these are programs that are literally logging all your keystrokes on the computer, and then they can be read back. So yeah, when you have keylogger, that's not good. One lesson with all of these is if your computer is acting oddly, or your phone is acting oddly, have it looked at right away without delay. Now let's take a fast look, since we've done all that good stuff, some fun stuff. This just gives you an idea. I'm looking back at we're looking at inbound and outbound email statistics for a couple of days. You can see, it's kind of written strange, but February 28th, March 1st. You can see the dates here. And you can see the blue is allowed email. This middle one is the email that's been blocked. You can see there's a lot of activity here. And the bottom one is quarantine. These are things that were just stopped and blocked. They're not going to ever get through to the end user. Outbound is, we really don't block outbound mail. So if an organization is telling you to check with IT because they're not getting a message, you can pretty securely tell them IT does not block outbound messaging. You might want to check the email address of who you're sending it to, have them check their spam filter, and if you're lucky enough to have an IT department with advanced threat protection, have them check their firewall. Maybe for some reason it got blocked on their end. But we do not block outbound messages. Very rarely. And here's just a look. These are advanced threats that have been automatically blocked through these days. And you can see some days, like in this particular day, for whatever reason, we had 11 phishing attacks that were blocked that day. And many phishing attacks, like if you might see this where it says 11 that one day, that's 11 identified phishing attacks that were done. But if a phishing attack went to, very often, we'll go to like 12 people, 20 people. This is not how many people it went to. This is how many attacks there were. So sometimes there's 20, 30 people in one that was identified and stopped. So these are just the actual one message. It's not how many people it went to. Kind of cool. Here, well, I'll look inside Barracuda's Advanced Threat Protection. And this just is giving you an idea of some of the things that it's stopping and why it was stopping it. And here it's giving me some information on how many phishing and scamming, impersonation, conversation hacking. Maybe at some point we'll talk about these different types here. I do have them in my monthly reports if you're ever interested about what these are. And here's some actual headers of messages and how many emails that were stopped with that particular message. It's kind of cool to see. And this is for the last 6 months from October to March. These were automatically blocked by the system, I believe. And these were threats that were remediated. So these are this, and this is how many emails with inside of that. It's pretty amazing. This is just our little organization. All of this stuff is happening, and this is not even ones that our staff reports to us, which is a lot, and that speaks a lot to our staff. When it comes to reporting messages, I will say, even if it's just spam or a salesperson that's bugging you, or anything that could possibly be a problem, report everything. We take the time to act on all those, and the less nonsense coming in through our email, the more protected we are. The less nonsense, the more you can focus on what's legitimate and avoid what's not. So never be afraid to report anything, however small of a problem you think it may be. And as I always say as well, as we just talked about here, is if you received a message, many others may have as well, and you're helping the entire organization by reporting these. And that's all. Since this is a virtual recorded training, I cannot answer your questions because I don't know what you're thinking about right now. So my office is open to stop in whenever you would like to talk about these things. You're always going to see me walking around talking about it. Read the newsletter. If you have things you want to hear about in the newsletter, the Cybersecurity Friday newsletter, which comes out every Friday at 9:30, or most relentlessly, unless there's something really unusual happening with me in my personal life or work. So never be afraid to ask questions about what you read in that newsletter, or if you want something covered in the newsletter. So there you go. I hope this going on 40-minute video wasn't too long, and I apologize, but I wanted to take my time with it. So there you go. Have a good cybersecurity safe day, week, and year, and month. And talk to you all very soon. Thank you.